Hey guys, and aloha. Welcome to the Christian Surfers Talk Story podcast, where we talk about Jesus and talk to surfers that love Jesus. Today on the podcast, we have the one and only amazing Mandy Fry. Hey guys, and aloha. It's Mark Sawyer Chu.
And AJ Ellerington.
Together, we'll be hosting the Christian Surfers podcast,
where we talk Jesus
and talk with surfers that love Jesus.
Tune in to hear some amazing stories.
We have a very special guest today in the world's smallest Christian library. Nonetheless, Mandy Fry, so stoked to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This is your first Christian Surfers conference.
It is, yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Long time coming.
Long time coming. You've been talking to me about it forever.
We finally got you here through bribing you with Carlsbad alkaline water infused with Jesus.
That's right.
And CBD. So thank you for being here. And thanks for making time for us. You have spoken at so many industry events over the years. I've seen you up on stage 100 times.
Yep.
Is this the first faith-based podcast or conversation that you've been on?
It is. Strangely and surprisingly, it is. And it felt really good today to be in a room full of like-minded people who have the same beliefs. And it felt really comfortable. It was nice to be up there and answer questions just from the heart.
Yes.
Not a lot I had to prepare for. So.
Yes, and you get to completely be yourself here, especially right now, and this won't be the last. So tell us and a little bit about your story, your testimony, how you got into the surf industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I grew up moving all over the United States. My dad was with IBM, which stands for I've Been Moved. We always joke, but it was always those family meetings that my mom and dad would call, and I knew that meant another move. And we moved all over, which, has its pros and cons. I guess you'd say I'm able to transition after that experience. But we landed in Kentucky. And that's where I went to high school. I was only there for 4 years, but that's where I left my family. So that's still where I say I'm from.
Yeah.
But it wasn't my thing. And for some reason, I didn't know much about California, but I had a real calling to come this direction. So at 18, I got in the car. And after talking on the back porch with my mom and dad for, 5-6 months, I finally convinced them that I was going to head to California. They said, you're on your own financially, but here's the keys to your mom's brand new Honda Accord that she had waited years to get.
Wow.
And they said, you can have the car and we'll talk to you every day of your life, but financially you're on your own.
Wow.
So that was probably 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening. And that next morning at 3 a.m., I woke them up and said it's now or never. And my little Honda Accord was filled to the top. And I left my mom and dad standing in the driveway at about 3:30 a.m. and took off for California. Really hope my children don't do that to me. I can't believe I did that to my mom. I still apologize to this day. But she said there was no holding me back. I was determined and was on a mission. She didn't know for what, and I didn't know for what, but landed in California, really didn't know what that meant. Had an aunt and uncle that lived in Huntington. Had a friend that I'd met snowboarding in Crested Butte, Colorado. And so that was my only real connection to California. And I just knew from reading 17 magazine in Kentucky, where I tore out a little card that said FIDM, Fashion Institute Design and Merchandising. I just knew that that's where I needed to figure out how to get to that school. So
amazing.
That's how I got here.
The most successful person to come out of Kentucky in the surf industry, and you chased your dream and drove across the country. What year was that you arrived? Was it in LA?
It was in, strangely enough, I landed in Redding, California.
Redding, Bethel.
And only few people know what that means.
That was the fashion capital of the world next to the School of the Supernatural.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Long story short, that's how naive I was. That's where I landed. And that was 1994.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, I'm in Redding. FIDM is in LA. They had a campus in San Francisco as well. My family's in Kentucky. What do I need to do here? So I went to work for United Airlines as a baggage girl on the tarmac. and figure out how to fly for free, fly home to see my family, also fly down to LA to interview for school.
Yeah.
So I did that for 9 months. I loaded bags on and off airplanes for United. And this is before 9/11, so I could fly jump seat in between the two pilots and hop on a flight and head down to San Francisco or LA. Back then, you had to do a lot of interviews to get into the school. It's now much different process. But back then, it was a lot of flying back and forth and interviewing. About, 11 months later, I got in. And so I moved down to Orange County, lived in Lake Forest with a friend's mom. Okay. And lived there while I commuted to school and put myself through school, worked 3 jobs, worked 2 retail stores at South Coast Plaza, and then worked at the Laguna Playhouse in Laguna just as an assistant, like costume designer, and put myself through school until enough was enough and I couldn't handle it anymore. 3 jobs in school was a lot.
Yes. So humble beginnings there.
Yep.
And hopefully, you took care of all the surfboard bags that went through on United. I'm sure you took extra care of those just because who you are. And
probably didn't even know what it was at the time.
Where these things are so big and bulky and heavy, you're just gonna run them over.
Yeah.
And then absolutely hustling, just grinding. But you made it work.
Yeah.
And you fought. And then where did you end up after school? What was your first job in the industry?
I went to the counselor at school and I said, I need one job. I can't keep doing this. I'm going to fail. I can't keep it up. So can you help me with just one job? And she's like, not until you're alumni. We're only focusing on alumni right now. Well, she left to take a call off the wall. And I peeked over at her desk and it said OP, assistant designer. So I went home, called 411.
Information for those of you who don't know.
For those who don't know. And I called OP and the girl answered and I said, hey, I heard you're looking for an assistant designer and I want to apply. And somehow, some way, she got me to who I needed to connect with and went in for an interview and was hired on the spot.
Wow. And that was your first job in the surf industry.
That was my first job. And it was through a company who had the license for OP, but it was truly in the industry. And I met some amazing people like Dick Baker.
Yes.
A lot of great people that were with the OP brand at the time. And it was a great introduction. From there, my best friend called me and said, Roxy is looking for a swim designer. And I was like, swim? I don't do swim. I don't have any clue. I don't even know how I would even go about interviewing for that position. And she's like, just call this girl. She's the VP of design and see if you can get an interview. So I called her and Leslie Tobia. She's one of my longtime mentors. She taught me everything I knew about swim. And I called her up and she interviewed me, hired me on the spot, and I worked with her for about 6 years.
Amazing. And that was at Roxy.
That was at Roxy.
Okay.
Yeah. From there, Billabong called. They said, hey, we're doing swim only out of Australia. We're only importing swim. We want to start swim here in the U.S. So can you come over to Billabong and set up the swim division and start it from the ground up? I don't know how they saw into me that I could do that, but I went for it. Really hard to leave Quicksilver and Leslie, Quicksilver Roxy and Leslie, my boss at the time, but she gave me the okay to just go and fly and try it out. So I went over there, set up the department, hired the people we needed, and started and did swim for 3 years. And then one day the design director said that she was retiring. And at that time, Billabong Women's was only doing like t-shirts, board shorts, and sweatshirts. Okay. But the design director was retiring, and the CEO at the time called me upstairs and said, I want you to take over all of women's and let's move you into the design director role for all categories. So I did that and did that for over a decade. I had a great ride. Billabong Women's especially was just
at that time.
Yeah, it was a really, really fun ride, and started doing things for Billabong that I think the surf industry never thought women could do, which was do dresses, and we did fur coats, and we did denim. We got into the denim business. We did things that women brands in the surf industry had never done, categories, and
amazing. Jean shorts at all, George?
Oh, yeah. A lot of shorts.
Yes.
Right before that was just board shorts, and
yes.
so then we were launching all kinds of different fabrications and all
Well,
categories.
the brands back then were mostly just male apparel. They didn't really have these robust women's divisions like we do have in the industry now, and so you kind of helped pioneer that movement.
Yeah.
And so
it was a lot of fun to see that these surf shops were making way for women. The sections were getting bigger. It used to be just like a corner. 10 by 10 corner, and then all of a sudden we were taking up a quarter of their store, and then we were taking up half the store, and I saw that happen right before my eyes, all of that time working for Billabong. And we would start things that were really outside of the comfort zone of the industry, and then all of a sudden all the other brands were doing it as well. So really cool to see women's the surf industry for women changing, seeing more of the board riders come on as women, and be sponsored. It felt really good to be a part of a time where the brands are really getting behind women.
I love that. So Billabong, Roxy, OP, all brands that we know and love. We've all bought some product. In that journey, how was your walk with the Lord during the time? Where were you at in those different seasons of life?
My walk with the Lord during that time, well, I was in my 20s, and I was definitely, I was single. I hadn't met my husband yet, but I was really serious about my career, probably too serious in hindsight. I had my head down. I was grinding. I was working there till 10 o'clock at night, going home and doing it all over again. By the weekends, pretty exhausted, and carving out time for friends. And other than that, I will say I was going to church along the way through that decade, but I wasn't real close. But I knew that he had my shoulders. I felt like he was always just guiding me, and I always felt his presence. And, I was definitely in prayer, but I wasn't like really, really latched on and having a meaningful relationship at that time. I think in your 20s, for a lot of people, but I'll say girls specifically, you can get lost in your way. If you're just searching for who you're going to be and what you're going to become, and there's a lot of questions at that time, and a lot of concern. Will I meet my husband? Will I get my perfect job? And at that time, I was just so focused on my career, yet at the same time, not really looking ahead. I was really just concerned about how to get through the day and how to get into tomorrow, and get down my to-do list and get it done. So yes, definitely in prayer, definitely knew he was right with me and behind me. I always felt his presence. And I just, looking back, was like, my goodness, God, your timing was perfect.
Right.
The people you put in my life, the people you took out of my life, I could get more into that story, but I'll move into my 30s when I met my husband. And it is truly a blessing when you meet someone that is, when you're a Christian and you meet someone who's a Christian. And God has really blessed me with my husband, and the fact that he put someone in my life who was also a believer. And that really changed my trajectory of where I was going with my faith. Being like-minded. He came down from Santa Cruz when we were getting married, and he said, if there was one place we're going to live, if we can't live in Santa Cruz where the waves are so good, we got to live in San Clemente.
The Bible Belt.
And at that time, I was living in Newport Beach, California, and I was just like, San Clemente, that is such a sleepy town. Are you sure? And I'm so thankful he did, because when we were planning our move and getting married, planning our move to San Clemente, he said one of his really close friends that he'd surfed with all these years was George Hulse, and he was the minister at Shoreline. And so he was like, we got to go to my buddy George's church. And I had no idea that at that moment, that idea, that comment that Kurt made would completely change our lives. That was 15 years ago, and we've been going to Shoreline Church in San Clemente all along, and have met such amazing people that we do life with right now, that have kids that are our kids' ages, that are like-minded. It's who we go to school with, it's who we go to church with, it's who we do sports with, and all just so thankful to the Shoreline for that.
Yeah, Pastor George is awesome.
Yeah.
Mandy, I wanted to ask you, is it difficult to be a Jesus follower in the surf industry? Is it hard to be a Christian in the surf industry?
It's lonely. It's definitely lonely. It's strange how after 20 years of being in the industry, maybe even a little bit more now, that I don't come in contact with a lot of Christians. And maybe I do, and that's not been made obvious to me. And it's hard in my role to seek that out. I've been in a place of leadership, and I'm leading, now I'm leading a group of 85 people. And to be in that position, you can't put your faith on them, and you have to be a light without bringing religion into the workplace, which is very, very tough for me. It's something I wake up every day with, and I'm challenged. But I've come to a place, just my husband and my mom both are two people, and my dad before he passed away, the three people in my life who've really grounded me about understanding and balancing what I do for work, who I am as a mom, and who I am as a person, and who I am as a believer, and how that all can intertwine. You don't have to, go in screaming and announcing it that you are a believer, but you can go in and be a light and be that person that people are like, there's something different about her.
Yes.
There's some sort of positivity. There's some sort of just light that feels different, and I want to work for her. I want to be around her, or I want to work for the brand that she's leading, because I can tell that company is leading with empathy and understanding, and they're also leading with trust and honesty. And that I feel is rare. And I've seen it along the way growing up in the surf industry, and I think I've just marked time and noted the things where if and when I get to lead a company, which here I am today, I'm going to do things differently.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make sure that people feel there is something different and see that they are working for a brand, working for a company that is built on true, honest values. And if that pulls back the curtain a little bit and it opens up conversations and where people want to find out more, I definitely have those relationships with some in the industry who know that I'm a believer and see that in me and are curious. And we're able to talk about it, but it's not something I can go in openly talking about in the daily, which is a struggle. Yeah, and
you've done an amazing job, Mandy, and I know it hasn't always been easy. And you alluded to earlier, you got 85 employees, you're the CEO at Z Supply right now, which is booming. But where did you go after Billabong? What was the next move after that?
So Billabong was going through a change. They were going to be sold. And it was a good time. I'd been there a long time. It was a good time to kind of quietly exit stage right. Upper management had left or was in transition of leaving. And I just knew that there was white space for a women's brand who could be sold in the surf industry, but also straddle the boutique business. Where Billabong, we weren't able to get into boutiques due to the fact that we had a Billabong men's label on our product. They liked our product, but they didn't want the label. So I knew that I could go out and create a women's brand that could parallel surf and fashion, surf and boutiques. And I saw a real opportunity in that, and I just needed funding. So in my search for what that was going to look like, I decided to go to Volcom for a year. I was friends with the CEO at the time, and he was looking for someone to come in and kind of reevaluate women's from top to bottom. I really liked the idea because they were owned by Kering at the time, who also owns Gucci and a lot of other luxury brands. And I knew that was going to open up my world to a whole new set of opportunities and just be able to learn and see things that I never had. Here, I had read Vogue magazine growing up as a teenager, and now here I am, fast forward, working for Volcom under Kering and sitting at Fashion Week behind Anna Wintour. I was just like, wow, this is pretty spectacular. Yeah. But I knew I didn't want to stay at Volcom too long because my goal was ultimately to start a brand. And I had partnered with Summer Rapp and Paul Nadet. Paul Nadet had been the CEO at Billabong for so many years, and then he left to start a men's brand, Bisla. Mm-hmm. Summer Rapp and I had gone back to the Quicksilver days where we first met when we were very young, and we had stayed friends, and we were very like-minded in our design aesthetic and wanting to build a brand like a Muse Society, which is what we co-founded together, and we did that in 2014. And out of the gates, it was amazing. It was the right time. Timing is everything, and the industry was ready for it. So we launched at Agenda. We had 3 rows of people out into the aisles. We got named Women's of the Year like 3 different times in a row. And that was just out of the gates. We were immediately distributed in all countries due to the relationships that we had as a group prior and through Billabong. So here we are in, 20, almost 30 countries, and we were a brand new brand. So it went like this, and it was a great ride. But I did that for 5 years, and then I decided to step back. I needed a moment to just pause. I needed a moment to be a mom, and I had never been and a wife. Yeah. I had never been a stay-at-home mom before. It was time to stop having a nanny for 50 hours a week. It was time to just put my feet on the ground. Yeah. I'd been traveling around the world for many years and leaving my family behind. Yeah. So 2018 was one of the best things I could have ever done for myself. I stopped everything, let go of our nanny, whom I loved, that we're still dearly close to this day. Yeah. Kurt had stopped working so I could start a Muse. So this was we passed the baton, and he went back to work. And then I stayed home. During that 365 days, I quickly found out that probably stay-at-home mom wasn't my jam. Mm-hmm. Because I was like, Kurt was like, you keep hiring babysitters. What is going on? But I was meeting with every CEO. I'd get a phone call from the CEO of Billabong, the CEO of Ruka, whoever it was, and I'd be like, CEO of O'Neill, and I'm like, okay, yeah, let's meet. And I loved having these meetings. I loved talking about opportunity. I loved talking about other people's needs and where maybe I could be a fit for them. But at the same time, I loved the idea of building another brand. So I was creating, decks and dreaming up the next brand that I would start. And Kurt looked at me one day and he's like, oh my, you just need to go back to work. Like,
you're an entrepreneur.
you
can't hide it.
Stop. Yeah.
Mandy, it's 2018. You've gone through several brands now, building them and leading them. Where were you at, and how was the family doing?
I was exhausted. My kids were young. They're 10 and 12 now, but they were real young at the time. And I was exhausted from grinding it out for so long. I'd been traveling the world and leaving my family behind a lot. Yeah. And I think inside of me, I was just really struggling. I was struggling with not being a present enough wife, a present enough mom. I was struggling with just not having time with God and to really lean into my relationship with God. I was just mentally drained, and I needed to get off the train. And I never thought I would say that. And at the time, it was very, very scary, and it took me a long time to make the decision. Hindsight, I would just wish that for every mom. I wish that there was a way that every mom would get a 12-month break.
Yes,
because of their just working and being a mom I know it's a lot for being a dad too, but there's something different about being a working mom, because when you come home, you're still on. The dad doesn't do everything,
Kids need mommy.
Kids need mom, and you, as a mom, you want to be there for them no matter what it takes. So you're getting up in the middle of the night and you're going through all of the kids stuff with them, because you can't imagine just leaving that to your husband as a mother. So I jumped off the train safely and soundly. I spent about a year of spending time with my kids. That year was so refreshing. It was a moment of taking my kids to the beach, putting my feet in the sand, picking them up from school, telling them we're going for a surf, and getting in the ocean with them. And Kurt had gone back to work at this point, so it was just me and the kids, and it was something so beautiful about that time of stillness. It opened up the opportunity to travel a lot more than we had been as a family. It was the first time I would open up my phone. I'd be like, Kurt, there's no emails. No one's emailing me. No one's texting me. No one's looking for me. And I could really just be in the moment with my kids and be present. And that was an unbelievable feeling. But at the same time, I really had a yearn and a calling to do something with my ability as a leader, my creative ability. I just could not retire. It was time to go back in. I had been meeting with a lot of different brands, and nothing really felt right. And there was a brand that I now am partner and president for, in the Z Supply, and the two founders started calling me. It was Greg Garrett was actually the first phone call after the press release went out that I had left Amuse. And it was the very next morning. I was unloading the dishwasher. I don't even think I stopped. I just let the glasses keep clinking while I was trying to talk to him on the phone. And I was like, who? Z Supply? I'm like, I need a year off. And he's like, okay, I'll call you in 3 months. And he did. And we talked and we met. And he's like, I'll call you in another 3 months. And he did. And then he lives in Carmel. He's retired and living up there. And he's like, come up to Carmel. I want to meet your husband and your kids. So we went up there, and we always joke that my whole family interviewed him. He flew Kurt and I to Vegas to the trade show to really see the brand in action and how, they were selling at the trade show. And all along I was doing a little bit of consulting for him, but I finally got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to dive back in. But I did not want to leave my kids. I was really struggling with that. And so Kurt was like, he has a real innate ability to see opportunity and new brands and opportunity and brands he think can be something. He just kind of has a knack for that. And he kept telling me, Z Supply, this is a place you could really flourish. I really think you should go after it. And he's like, if it's the kids that are holding you back from seeking this opportunity, I'm going to leave my job and you're going to pass the baton. So let's see, June of 2019, he left his job. We had 30 days at home together. And I look back now and laugh because he's such an amazing dad. And he's the kind of dad who can be fun dad, get the job done, have the homework done. He's an amazing cook. So he's also cooks and grabs the groceries and does the laundry. And here I am in June of 2019 training him, telling him how I want the kitchen to be ran and how I think this should be ran. He's like, yeah, I got it. Yeah. Don't worry. So I went full-time into Z Supply in July of 2019. And I'll tell you, it was the best decision of my life. I didn't know it at the time. I was doing a little bit of kicking and screaming just with the idea of, I know when I'm into something, I'm full both feet in, and I was scared of that. I was scared of I was going to transition back to a place where I was just, again, exhausted and burnt out from giving it too much of my all. Yeah. But I told myself I'm going to do it differently this time. And the biggest difference, I would say, is not what I'm doing. It's how the Lord is working through me in such a different way. And also the two founders have really set the stage for me. One of them, like I said, Greg, he's pretty much retired. He's kind of like the chairman of our board, and he's my lifeline. He's my phone call away. And then John oversees our factories. And they're both such amazing men. And they've really given me the platform to just flourish.
Amazing.
And no brick walls, just open doors. And I've been able to really implement things at the company and implement things for the employees and implement things just as a brand that I've never been able to do in my career.
I love it.
So it's been an amazing ride.
That's an amazing story, Mandy. And you and Kurt are like the modern day Who's the Boss from the 80s TV show.
Yeah.
He's Tony Danza. He's at home and you're out there, CEO, bringing home the bread. What was your first exposure with Christian surfers?
So back to Shoreline with George Hulse. He invited us over to his house. I don't know if it was 2014, 2015. I remember my kids were little and playing on his floor. But Christian Surfers was gathering there, and that's where I met Roy. I believe I met you.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. And yeah, who would have known that? Flash forward to today, we're together.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. That was an amazing time. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Christian Surfers Talk Story podcast episode today with Mandy Fry and her story and her testimony. What an amazing woman of faith, and how successful is she in the surf industry. Tune in and subscribe here for more stories like that, and we'll see you soon.